Oh, there's Katie now.
Got good ears.
You know her footsteps.
It's a little creepy. 5:31, I'll live with it.
All right, gonna call the Monday, December 4th meeting of the Community Wellness Committee to order. And so I am here, Mark Davies and Luke Murphy.
Yes.
And, sorry, Councilmember Murphy and Councilmember Paparshu.
Hello.
Hello. So approval of minutes.
They look great to me.
Seems like a
read
pretty
them.
good endorsement of them. All right, we'll consider them approved. And so I understand that we're going to reverse our topic. So rather than
It's okay.
talk about food insecurity planning, we'll move that second and we'll talk about public storage lockers for unhoused people. And I'm gonna be real honest, Katie, I did not see the email today, so I'm playing catch up. So if you can kind of walk us into kind of what you've got here, what you discovered, and then, Mr. Rizzo, I think you're gonna be talking about some,
I'll tell you my perspective also, the chief also been sensitive to some concerns.
Yeah, so I started to look into it a little bit, and then today I wanted to just, one of the things that I hadn't really looked at prior to today was finding other communities who had been doing it. There are obviously spaces where public lockers are a thing, gyms, the roller rink has public lockers. But today I found Berkeley, California, and I wasn't surprised, has a free locker system for the public, but it's for the unhoused community, and they partner with a local not-for-profit organization so the city provides the lockers and the maintenance, and then the organization provides the security and the access. I don't know if that's exactly the balance that we would want to strike here, but I thought it was interesting just as a suggestion to be partnering with a local organization, especially since I know that there is some desire for this, outside of just the municipal sphere. And I referenced in my email, there are a couple other things that I thought were really cool about what Berkeley is doing to address the situation of people without housing in their community, that I thought might be interesting for us to use as inspiration for how could we facilitate that, right? Because I know the goal here isn't for us to provide everything, but to try to facilitate solutions that might affect positive change in our community. So that's what they do in Berkeley. I know, my biggest question, I think, is where could these lockers be located? Because then questions of access and oversight, we can get a little bit more particular about what that looks like. So I had suggested to our city administrator to find out if there was any room in the transit hub, which would have a staff member, presumably at most times, and would be on direct, indirect connection to all of the parts of the city. Could be located indoors in a relatively public place so that people would feel safe. There were a couple questions that were brought up that I think we're gonna have to hash out. It's obviously kind of a risky proposition to say, here's this space and you can do whatever you want with it. That's not, you have to have parameters in place. One of the things that I learned was, in Berkeley, they rent you the space for 31 days, and if you haven't claimed your stuff within 31 days, they will donate it. UAlbany does day use lockers, so at the end of their free lockers are day use. You can also rent a locker for a fee for a different amount of time, and then when your locker date contract is up, if you haven't claimed your stuff, they keep it for a week or 2 weeks. And then if it hasn't been claimed, then it's similar to the shopping cart ordinance where we're gonna hang on to it for 5 days or something and let you know that we have it. All of this, I think, requires some sort of, and of course, right, some sort of like digital collection of information, like maybe signing terms of use, something like that, so that we have some organization as to like when people have put their stuff in a locker and when they should come get it. A lot of companies are able to do like a digital access, so you can sign up for it digitally, it'll give you a code, you're the only person who knows that code. Presumably there's some sort of override function for the owner of the locker system. But I think, you know, one of the questions that the chief brought up was about giving out like locks with keys, and I think that that's just too like cumbersome a system. And we would have to go with something that has like a digital access to it. Yeah, have I answered all those questions? I'm not sure, but anyway, so that's like what I found out, was that, you know, there are places that are doing this, and I think we would have to figure out where they were gonna be, what use of them and oversight might look like, who we might be able to partner with, if anybody, and then sort of get our perimeters in place. But honestly, like finding lockers for public use, like with, you know, digital lock access is pretty straightforward, and they're not very expensive, comparatively, so being able to put it in place once we get all the, you know, circumstances figured out seems like not that challenging. Yeah, so that's where I am. And I was gonna pull up the email with the chief's questions, because those are all things that absolutely have to be worked out, and, you know, obviously he's coming at it from a public safety standpoint, and
Sure.
those are really important questions to ask, so.
So, Ms. Merzig, I know you have kind of a time crunch here, so let's
Yeah.
turn over to you to be able, if you can address some of the things that you've got.
I think, if you're gonna do it, partnering with a not-for-profit is imperative
Okay.
for lots of reasons. If you're simply providing a public locker space, then the city generally should not be in the business of it, and if we were, we couldn't limit, because it would be a public program. It'd not be something there'd be a limit. If somebody wanted to come in and take them all and use them to store Amazon things, we wouldn't be able to do it. If you're gonna limit it to homeless, you have to define what a homeless person was.
Right.
You have to make a determination, and it would have to be, partnered, because again, the city can't discriminate.
Yeah, so let me just, I wouldn't say that it would, I think that the idea is to benefit the homeless population, but my intention is not to limit it for that particular segment of the population.
LA has a significant program that is maintained with a not-for-profit,
Oh, cool.
where what they do is that each person has a bin, a refuse bin, like the kind that are distributed by all the haulers in the city of Oneonta, like a recycling bin, that's secured, that has a number on it. They can put anything in it that they want. It is then accessed. They come to the facility, they access it, the bin is brought to them. That may be a little more extensive than what we're talking about. But if we had public storage lockers, they would have to be done for a public purpose, and they'd have to be available. So if you did it through a not-for-profit, and the purpose and the intent of the not-for-profit was to provide for a particular community, you can do it much better that way. And if it was a facility, you want to have someone available again for the safety issues. We also have to worry about liability issues. Obviously, if somebody put dead fish in a locker, we'd have to be able to access things. Sometimes bad things happen in public lockers. I don't know if you recall. None of you may be old enough to remember when all public lockers were made illegal in any public space because of bombs. Bombs were put into train stations, bus stations, municipal stations, and they were made illegal. It's only within the last 15 years or so that they have come back and been made available.
Were there some like regulatory conditions that were put on them being brought back? I mean, because
no, they began allowing them again.
Okay.
And the thing is that the the temporary ones, you have to figure out how long someone can do it for. Is it 1 day, 5 days? 10 days, do you pay? How do you pay? If it's no pay, then can somebody just re-up it in perpetuity? Can I just show up and say, I still want it for another 30 days, show up on the 29th day, get it free for another 30 days, and if there are only 20 units, they could get dominated for a very long period of time.
Right.
So the criterion and how they would be accessed, how they would be controlled, time of day, access day or night. On the one hand, you want it to be public for public access. On the other hand, you don't want to have it so public that it becomes an obvious point for someone who wants to mug somebody while they're getting their stuff out of their locker. If everybody knows this is where it is, and anybody can be there, they can show up at the nighttime to do that. That was some of the things that the police chief talked about. So if it was run purely by the city, I think you run into too many liability questions and opportunity questions and exclusion questions. We could make it part of a program, but then how we would determine who was eligible for it, who wasn't, so that some taxpayers are being benefited and some aren't well, we pay taxes, why can't we use the locker for free for, so I can store my Christmas stuff? But through a not-for-profit, you could limit that much more easily.
One of the things I liked about the not-for-profit partnering too was that they were actually located in a facility that was like
Already
designed
operating.
to give services to people. So it connected them to like shelters and showers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that would be another benefit I would see, is like if they have a location. But then are we
Like
sort of
the
just saying
OFO.
like, hey, it'd be great if you.
Not to commit them in any way,
Yeah, of
but
course.
the OFO homeless shelter,
Right,
which already is staffed 24/7,
right.
and they might have a place where down and they could administer it, but we could fund it through a funding program.
Okay.
Something of that nature would be ideal from my standpoint.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for him?
Katie, do you have a sense of the need for this? Have you?
So it's something that was suggested to me, and then when we brought up the shopping cart ordinance, it felt like people need a place to, people who don't otherwise have a place to put their stuff may need a place that has, the safe that has access where they know they can put something. Actually, I think it was brought up maybe in one of our summits at one point, and it was just an idea that stuck with me, and then we started to talk about it. So I don't have any data to support it, but it's just an idea that's been bouncing around in my head.
It sounds like you do have a sense that there would be a need in the community for it.
I think it would be really well utilized, yeah. And I can definitely see the concerns, and I think those are all things that we need to work out, and I'm certainly not opposed to working with an organization on figuring that out. I think that's probably where the suggestion actually originated from. Yeah, so I'm kind of open to ideas on how we can make this work.
So,
Good there. You get it.
anyway, so Patricia Leonard, Human Resources Center, before he transitions out of his job, Will Rivera, who's still, I think, you might know.
Will's gone,
Is he gone now, for real? All right,
for
well
real.
then I will. But in any way, certainly, Patricia Leonard might be somebody, give something a little bit more empirical in
Okay.
terms of what the need might be.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to reach out or
I'm happy to do it.
Good.
Starting still recovering from the wheelchair, I hope he's still.
I know.
Yeah, I forget what the gig is that he switched over to. Is
It's
it?
a state level position in the same kind of arena of, violence prevention and all of that, so it's a real step up.
Good.
And I think he's very excited to be there.
Oh, good, I wish him all the best, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just don't wanna lose him as a community member as
Well,
well.
I think he's still living here.
Okay.
Invaluable.
Yeah.
Kind of guy. Anyway, that's my input.
Thank you.
So, it seems that, unless there's any other questions, it seems like we're still in the exploratory phase, right? There's a lot of kind of pieces here, there's potential partnerships that we need to get in place. So Katie, sounds like, are you willing to kind of take that next step and make the call and see if there might be a willing partner in OFO and
Yeah.
there? And then I think then we can begin to determine the next steps of what that would look like and how it would be, you know,
Potentially funded.
yeah, I'd love to know, yeah, funding, you know, I hate to say grants, because immediately we all think of Judy Pangman, but I think, you know, this might be the perfect type of thing that a grant would be really, potentially really good for. I guess I'd still love, I have a lot of questions, and my apologies, I didn't have time today to read the email, even to look this over, but I'd like to look over your email and see kind of how do other programs run it, and what ideas, why reinvent the wheel? What can we get from other programs that might be helpful for us, thinking about this moving forward? And given, you know, Mr. Merzig's concerns and how we kind of situate this. I'd also like to know, I guess there's part of me that wonders, would there be an element of distrust for this, so that it's not utilized? And so if so, how do you overcome that? How do you make this seem like this is something that might bring value to folks and that they would utilize the benefit, if you will? So I don't know, there's just a lot of questions I have about that.
That's one of the concerns I had as I was sort of thinking about, you know, how do we assign liability? So how do we say, like, does someone come up and they have something and they have to sign in, right? In order to claim a locker in some way, they have to give a name or something. And then, you know, do they sign some sort of disclaimer that says, I swear I am not putting in dead fish or bombs, you know? And would that discourage anybody? And I know for sure it would discourage some people, you know, and so I agree with you.
Well, even how do they do the disclaimer, right? Is it
Right.
something
Well, it could be on
or
like
is it
a
something, right?
tablet
Yeah.
kiosk thing,
Yeah.
but still, you know.
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
to sign in is sometimes you know, and I think it's necessary, but then do we undercut the service? Yeah.
Right.
So I share that concern with you.
Okay. And then Mayor, is this something, and forgive me, I don't know the name of the other committee off the top of my head.
Safe homes and neighborhoods.
Yeah, is this something that is, I mean, is this something we should be collaborating with them on? or-
Coordinating in some degree. I mean, they've got as large a charge as you guys have, so, you know, I think just coordinating so that they don't wind up duplicating efforts.
Fair enough, I just want to make sure we weren't kind of veering too far into their lane. I mean, I think this is kind of part of what we've been talking about all
It
along,
is.
but.
And you know, the overlap of everything, you know, is, I mean, you can't avoid that, so it's just a matter of communication.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions or points or concerns or anything we need to be thinking about moving forward? I've just got a list of questions here.
If you want to forward them to me, I can do my best
A
to
lot
try
of
to
what
answer.
were ones that he
Okay.
certainly brought up, but I, try to get them all down. I think we certainly need to begin thinking about these, but obviously we already are, the when and where and access and criteria for using them. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of pieces that need to be built out here. Luke, are you pretty comfortable moving forward or moving on to the next topic, or do you want to have any time more to discuss this?
No, I'm good. I apologize for being quiet. It's just I've got a hard time like filtering questions in my head. So because I've got a lot of thoughts. I think it's a good thing. It's a very heavy thought it's just a problem. It's just really rough for a lot of people. It's weighing on my head thoughts.
Yeah.
More than usual for some reason.
And this is what's great, if we can find a partner who's already kind of in this, the OFO seems to me, clearly this is not our area of expertise, and it is theirs, right?
Mhm.
So they might be able to have a whole bunch of ideas that we haven't thought about, questions we haven't considered, and that's where a partnership would be really wonderful to begin to kind of utilize their expertise and how do we move forward and solve some of these problems. And then I guess the other question is this a problem we need to solve? And I guess that would be the first question I want to say. I think we all intuitively think that it is and believe that it is. I'd really love to hear from those folks. Is this a problem? Is this something, does a problem need to be solved, and does this solve the problem? Problem, you know what I mean? From that standpoint, or we can have lockers sitting there idle. So if everyone feels that this is solves a problem and this is a problem worth solving, then excellent, let's keep on moving forward. I mean, I think intuitively, again, we feel it is the case. So. Dr. It looked like you were going to say something, are you?
No, I agree entirely. I think it's a great idea, but getting a true sense of what the need may be is likely to be helpful.
Yeah.
And yeah, talking to people with a little more, that may be the next step.
Sounds good. Thank you for allowing me to switch up the agenda, so Mr. Mercer.
Oh, no, of course. I mean, obviously, it can be really flexible and fluid, so not a problem. Excellent. So let's get in then to food and security planning. And as I was scrolling, looking for the email Katie sent, I saw, Luke, that you sent an update. So I guess if you want to kind of start with, sorry, I'm trying to pull it up.
Sure.
What you sent out today and.
Yeah, so I think it was Katie, that made the very good point about, I didn't want to be a bother, but at the same time, those are the emails you remember, the ones you send out. So I've been trying to send out more emails, and we've gotten a lot more but a lot more responses. I think folks are indeed just leaving a lot of emails. So as of today, I was going through, because it's a fairly long chain, and some people do reply all, and some people don't. I think we've got 7 or 8 confirmed folks that'll be there. I'm just looking for the chain. I can give you a precise number on that. But it's looking like we'll have attendance won't be as big a concern as it was. I think it was in November or maybe late October. So we've got about 7 to 8 community partners that have confirmed they'll be there. I've gotten a lot of folks that said they can't, but they'll be sending a representative, which is nice. Such as the senior housing casework liaison for the county of Otsego County Department of Social Services. Yes. So it looks like we're going to have a decent number of folks there. And obviously, I know we're going to spend after we talked about our public storage lockers item. I think we were going to kind of brainstorm some questions. And thinking back to April, we had several. We got through maybe 4. Which was great because it was folks who were talking mostly to each other, and myself and then whoever took over after I had to leave for class was doing really just kind of moderating the conversation. So I think we're going to have a fairly decent turnout. I have the Zoom link thanks to Carrie that I think I sent at one point. I will be sending it out again a few days. I think about probably Thursday. Friday, I don't want to get stuck under all the weekends emails, so I'll send it out Thursday again, and then a day before reminder as well. So we've got some pretty good feedback, a lot of interest in it, and it sounds like we're going to have quite a few community members there.
Great, well, thank you for the update on that. Anything else you need, or are we pretty much good to go beyond, obviously, the pieces we need to do with questions and kind of rolling out today, but in terms of the operational pieces, are there anything else? And I was trying to see if I could find our questions from the last time quickly.
I think we're in good shape. I had a couple of folks reach out with specific questions that I was going to follow up on after our meeting tonight. It was difficult to get planning period didn't go as planning as we thought. There was other things that popped up, so I didn't have as much time to respond to the emails today. But in terms of committee-wide, I think we're in pretty good shape.
All right, good. Well, thank you, Luke, for your leadership on that.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm excited it's happening.
And Katie, thanks for your leadership on the lockers. It's good when we're all kind of working together and doing things. So let's turn our attention to then those questions and how we're going to do this. I mean, this is kind of round 2. Hopefully most of these folks came to our main summit. So hopefully we will be able to have, kind of new conversations and kind of a little bit more, not depth, because I thought we certainly covered a lot of things and got in depth on them, but to cover some new ground. One of the things personally I'd love to see out of here is that we continue to have that these groups are continuing to utilize each other and communicate with one another. I recognize the food insecurity group through the efforts of, I don't want to say who the ever, I'm not sure who exactly is the one kind of spearheading that, but it does have a regular listserv email that goes out to all their participants, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we want to make sure, one of the things we want to come away with is to know, is the communication taking place well enough? Do we, what role do we need to continue playing with this? But that's for the end. But as for now, and then I think, Katie, you felt that we wanted to have a little bit more, and I'm sorry if I'm paraphrasing you correctly, certainly correct me, but a little bit more, kind of allow them to kind of get into the topics they wanted to, perhaps less questions to kind of key up for them, and more to kind of take it where it's going to go and direct it when necessary. So what are our goals here? And Dr., please feel free to, your thoughts as well, but where do we want to get at here? And so what's our goals for this? If we're trying to kind of take that next step, what do those goals look like? And then I guess obviously, what are the questions that we need to get there? And then again, in my thinking, we need to make sure that one of the takeaways is how do we facilitate regular conversation? Is that listserv working for everyone? If not, how do we get that to work for everyone? How do we make sure that the communication continues and doesn't only take place in these kind of spaces of these summits, but are taking place in between, because there's so much important work. And I don't know if you all got the feeling, but I think we got some interesting stakeholders into the room that particular day, and there was lots of folks who did talk, folks that were not connected to those conversations. So I think trying to make sure that we can facilitate those broader conversations. So, all right, I'll stop, turn it over to you all those different questions and thoughts.
That's good, yeah, no, I like the idea of identifying what our goal is for the conversation, our goals might be, because I think that each time, and so my suggestion was based on our experience where I feel like we sometimes, at each one, we have had, a list of questions, we've come up and then they start talking and we're sort of struggling to interject these questions and we feel like we're like abruptly steering the vehicle in a different direction. So I think, if we can come up to your point with like, what do we want to get out of this conversation, and then just be a little bit more fluid and letting them sort of steer, then yeah, we might be able to accomplish the whole list if we have only 2 or 3.
And just to call ourselves out here, I have the questions from the first meeting. We had 12 questions. They were good questions, but we did say free form, we'll kind of, go where we wanted, but it was just, we were brainstorming a list of questions. But yeah, I think to even think we would get through half of those was probably way too adventurous.
Yeah.
So, good. So what is our goal then? What do we want to talk about? What is our goal here for this?
And personally, I think I'm not sure how we measure it other than, visually and kind of seeing how people click. It's really seeing those connections made with all the folks at the meeting, or at the majority. I think it was really great that our last meeting we had some really, it seemed like natural and authentic connection with several stakeholders. I'd love to see if there's a way we can get all those other important voices that maybe weren't as involved or weren't necessarily front and center in that discussion last time. Seeing if we can perhaps help facilitate that. I don't know how adventurous we might feel maybe doing breakout rooms, which Zoom does. I've done those a lot in my coursework, and they're a good way to have several simultaneous conversations within a single Zoom, and each one of them could potentially serve as a mini moderator for that. That might help. It might make things more complicated. It's something I just kind of started thinking of towards the beginning of the meeting. So if it seems crazy, it hasn't really been sat on very long. So
No, I think that breakout rooms facilitate greater conversation amongst fewer participants, right? So if you have 4 people to each breakout room, just making up a number, it's quite a bit different than having 12 people in the same room, especially when it's on Zoom. Sometimes the Zoom is great because it's convenient, but we also know the downside is that it's easy to be able to kind of sit back and not be as engaged in that particular setting. And sometimes the engagement when we're at physical meetings, I turn to my partner and I have a quick conversation, and that just doesn't allow for that. So I think breakout rooms certainly have a value. Again, I'd go back to, it's what are we trying to do, and then is this served? But I think it could serve something if our task is really to try to initiate greater conversations, to keep focusing on discussion of the issues. It seemed to me that we were going in really kind of aiming at, let's understand what the problems were, and everyone had their own individualized organizational problems. We all know what the big problem is, right?
Yes.
Food insecurity. But they had interesting organizational problems, and some people seem to have the solutions that other people, or at least partially, a partial solution for what other folks needed. Did you remember, there's a couple times where people were like, oh, but we do this. I was
Yes.
like, ah, it's nice, you know? So I guess I wonder if there's a way to kind of, if that's the value in this, is that folks are recognizing that through communicating with one another, they can begin to solve problems. Well, first of all, I guess that's a question, is that what we want to focus on? And then if so, how do we facilitate that? And it might be that we start with the small groups and then we make sure we have ample time to break out the bigger groups so that there is that larger conversation, that they are able to make some of those connections. I'm just brainstorming here, so please see it as the same thing, just trying to, work through how we, how we kind of push it this year.
So what were some of those 12 questions?
Just
Hey, I have them for you. What existing programs are in place? What do you need to support your programs? What programs have worked in the past? What are the patterns and trends with regard to food insecurity? What resources would be most helpful to groups? That may have been a typo. Do you have concerns that you're not reaching underserved communities, such as minority communities? If so, how would you attempt to address this concern? What obstacles exist for your organization? What opportunities exist? Do you have enough volunteers in your organization? What are less obvious issues that are impacting your organization? Are there partnerships you would like to pursue that would benefit your organization? How can the city support your organization, and where should we put our focus? So there was a range of different questions there. And obviously there was some of them all pretty overlap. And clearly I did not do a good job at writing these down.
So one thought I had, it was sort of a bird's eye view, if part of what we're doing is bringing people together, would there be any benefit of somehow formalizing? So for example, in March of '22, Oneida County formed a nonprofit called the Oneida County Food Coalition that brought together food pantries and meal sites, and I think it's an incorporated nonprofit. I don't know if they have paid staff. I know they have a Facebook page. I think they partnered to some degree with the city. Would there be any benefit of formalizing this connection that we've sort of created and then somehow being engaged with it? I don't, if it's no benefit, if just bringing people together every few months like we're doing serves the purpose, then fine, but in Syracuse, there's a big nonprofit called the Syracuse Onondaga Food Systems Alliance, and that has staff, and but it's it kind of does what we're talking about, I think, bringing different partners together that are like the people we have invited to the summit. And I guess that's sort of a bird's eye question I would ask of these different constituents.
Yeah, my understanding is that there is some loose organization.
There is
I don't
already.
know how much or to what extent, and maybe that's exactly the question, is to understand what's the scope of that. As I recall, and certainly feel free to jump in, not every organization that we had in that meeting was part of that. And I don't know how regularly they met. It seems like they had a listserv, which may have been the most active thing, but I certainly don't want to downplay any of the things that they might be doing. But was my takeaway, that they had an active listserv, and that they were trying to work on this.
Is that the Hunger Coalition?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, right?
So that's probably comparable then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think if we're interested in, because I think that organization is the key to everything, right? So if we can support an organization that's already doing the work and figure out what they need, how to get people more involved with that existing framework, volunteers who might be missing from that. Like, I know they already partner with, the food pantries already partner with the grocery stores and stuff like that. So, what we're trying to do really is get everybody in one room, but maybe it's not us, maybe it's our involvement in the Hunger Coalition, you know, going forward. The city having a supportive hand in that, because we see the work that we're doing and the need for that in our community.
Absolutely. And at the very least, the members of this committee being included on that listserv or whatever it is that they're sending out, so that everyone here is aware of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, to me, I agree with both of you. I think that some kind of organizational mechanism so that we are consistently addressing these issues, looking at these issues, and again, creating the space for collaborative conversation, because it seems that we're not, as I recall, gosh, I hate to go on the record saying these types of things, but I think it was like the Office of the Aging was not involved in that and wasn't aware of it. So, and it seems like, well, that's a perfect, you know, there's an example. Now, again, I could be wrong, maybe they've been involved from the very beginning. That was my recollection, gosh, it's terrible, back from May, it's not that long ago. But are there entities out there that could benefit from being involved in this? And maybe that's what we continue to play as well, is that role in facilitating and making sure that folks are getting into this right place that the Hunger Coalition is doing things. And like I said, maybe by getting folks here involved, it kind of creates, it supports the work that they're doing. It helps support the work that they're doing. Sometimes good work needs to be recognized and promoted and kind of held up in terms of particular ways. So I guess it'd be nice to, I forget, Reverend Cynthia, I forget her last name, she's the Red Door Church, yes, Walton Levin. As I recall, she was the one facilitating a lot of it, so has she or anybody from her organization responded? Because that would, I mean, it might be good to have her there to be able to, and she seemed to be really a very dynamic person.
She is,
here a couple weeks before. But that might be those questions for her from the start, is just to say, you know, maybe that's how it is. We start with framing, like what we heard last time was a lot of great conversations, but it seemed like there was people that were involved in different pieces. Some groups were organized, but other groups weren't. We're hoping that out of this, we can begin to have a larger conversation. And so we really want to explain or understand the role of the Hunger Coalition. And maybe that becomes our starting point to frame that. And then the questions we're asking is that the mechanism through which we're able to get more groups involved and more groups, you know, at the table talking about this particular issue?
She will be there. She said she has a appointment that it ends. She thinks she can make it. There's an appointment she has, but she's penciled in her calendar. She's hoping to be there.
Okay,
Well,
awesome.
tell her now she's our special guest.
I'll let her know.
Okay. Cool.
Go ahead.
No, please.
No, I was cutting you off.
Okay.
So Dr. George, does that get at what you're thinking?
Yes, exactly. I didn't realize that already existed, or maybe I forgot. But yeah, some sort of more formalized coalition of all these people we're bringing together to, you know, combine resources, be a place where people maybe can go. Because these other sites I was looking at did have like a presence in the, you know, we could have a link from our website or our Facebook page so that they're, I mean, it may not be necessary here, but some sort of formalized framework to bring together these groups that are all working on similar, to meet similar needs.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that, I mean, one of the things I think in general we can say about our area here, maybe it's the county, maybe it's the region, the city, but a lot of people are doing a lot of great work. They really are. But oftentimes what happens is they've got their head down, they're really focused on their piece of it, and again, doing excellent work, but it's taking a kind of a step back, looking around and recognizing that you've got partners to your left and right, but perhaps you've never really kind of, you haven't had the opportunity to be able to recognize that there's potential partnerships there. So to me, a coalition of sorts, and perhaps a coalition we're both imagining or envisioning, can play that role, right, of making sure that everyone's getting their head up for a little bit and talking about what their lean is and what their needs are and how they might work together, and giving more, kind of making that more visible so that we're not kind of fractured into these little small pieces, all working on the same issue and then sometimes overlapping and duplicating efforts. And one of the things I've heard in my other role on campus is that we had a lot of meetings with some community partners over the past year, is a lot of folks felt like grant writing was one of the most important things that they needed and they couldn't find folks to write grants and there was just all these issues around grants. We know that grants are the lifeblood of our nonprofits. That to me is that can that problem be solved by a coalition of some sorts that work to kind of share resources around grant writing, I mean, is there opportunities to be able to, every group feels like they want to have their own grant writer, well, is there an opportunity to be able to hire as a group a grant writer who works and serves in these organizations? So again, it's that thinking about how we share resources, share ideas, share our strengths to help address the weaknesses. Do we have the framework to be able to do that? And then is the Hunger Coalition that organization, or could they become, or are they interested in becoming? And then I think having those particular conversations.
Yeah,
Is that
that sounds good.
all right?
And if not, like, the answer is gonna be yes, but if not, like, how can we, like, if it's not that, then what is it? And how do we help them organize in order to be able to move together toward the goal?
Right. All right, so question for you. Maybe for you. Is it easy to throw together breakout rooms? Or does it have to be pre-planned?
With all due respect to the folks I've done it with, they haven't been particularly tech savvy. So I don't think it's, however, I've never done it.
You can do it on the fly.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think they're fairly easy to kind of whip up.
Okay. So I'm thinking maybe that's our back pocket strategy for if we want. So I think first we have to have this bigger conversation about kind of read the room with regards to the coalition. I think we should probably reach out to maybe Reverend Cynthia. Doctor, isn't she a doctor too? They're a business card sitting right here.
I think she is.
Yeah. Reach out to her to understand, see if, kind of let her know what we're thinking about the conversation, see if there's kind of interest on her end, and then let's start to have that conversation publicly about that organizing body and the role, whatever role that the Hunger Coalition could play. And then, perhaps the breakout rooms could be really thoughtful and helpful for beginning to talk about, how do we facilitate that? What is the Hunger Coalition? How do we facilitate it? How do we think about that? And I don't want to talk about their organization without, this is not our organization, but just, trying to see if that's something they're interested in. Or maybe it's rather than them, let's say, what would a coalition look like? How do we begin to conceive of a coalition and what role does that play?
Yeah, and I think, can we join and what can we bring?
Right, how can we help,
Right.
Because that was one of your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I keep going back because we don't have our head down focused on this issue like our other partner organizations, but right, what can we do? How can we help them? How can we help to highlight whatever we need to highlight? We talked about early on, when the mayor tasked us with this particular challenge was that we saw that one of the key roles was advocacy across the board, whether it was us or the mayor or general, it was our advocacy piece. So what can we do?
One thing I would like to get an update on is the status of organizations finding volunteers. And again, that may be something where they benefit from a centralized list of people who are interested in advancing that, that work. But I know that was one thing that I heard in a resounding way, was like, it's getting so hard, our volunteers are aging, and people are not coming in to replace them. And it's just harder to find volunteers, it's hard to find people that work for money these days, so. So I would like to get an update on that for sure, and see if that's something that some organization would help with, and are we the people to do that, or we at least bring it to light and try to figure out a way to help somebody else do that. I would also be really interested in any information on SUNY students dealing with hunger. I know that's something that you and Olivia have brought up, and I know the food pantry just opened.
And with some grant support as well, and support from the SUNY Central. I mean, there were people here from like Albany when that opened, so I think that grant has allowed for some ongoing support.
Cool.
But yeah, did Olivia respond to, hopefully she can update you, because I think it's been a pretty good success.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
But we should also get student volunteers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
volunteers. Yeah, and I'm guilty of it myself. I used to volunteer when I was young with my mom, and now I'm an adult and I don't find the time. And I should.
I just got a, I think I automatic reply, I didn't know if I had anything back.
Okay. She might be someone to reach out to.
Yeah, I can reach out to her, I know she's out of town right now.
That's a good thing it was, is I'm out of town, this was the kickback email, I'm out of town. She'll be back, December 7th,
Okay, so she'll be back.
she'll be back.
So,
What
Frank,
was your last name?
Avanzada.
That's what I thought, yeah, just making sure it was right. Yeah.
so here's, just trying to get some framing to this, sorry, it's the teacher me one of the lesson
I love
plan.
it.
You know, it is, right? So, a quick names and intro, right? We might have different players there, we might have different representatives from different organizations. Last time, if I recall, that took quite a while to get people really launched into it, but I think we really want to get a little deeper than those organizations. So, I think what we can do is to say something along the lines of just we'd like to do is kind of a brief introduction, name your organization. If you weren't at the last meeting, then you might want to give us a little bit more information about what your organization does. That way, those that were already there, we don't have to kind of go down that same path, if that makes sense. And then launch into your question. I think that's an easy one, because I hear you say that Reverend Cynthia will be a little bit late.
No, she said there's the potential, she didn't say she would,
Oh,
but she said
okay.
there's the potential.
Okay.
Just make sure we're on the same page, what was that question we were talking about?
I was just gonna say, what was my question?
What was your question?
No, you said.
Oh,
that.
your question,
Yeah.
volunteer update.
Oh, okay.
Right, so we asked for them to update about volunteers, and
Okay.
obviously, these are always busy times here with a lot of needs, so this is probably need for volunteers. I still feel like we need to come up, and that is a role I think we can play, and I know, Mayor Tronick, you're really working on trying to piece together that, create more of a volunteer culture that plugs in where we need to plug them in. I still feel like that is a piece that we could do as a city, or at least facilitate those conversations, not that we have to actually do the pairing, of course not, but facilitate the conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it would be easy enough if we were the ones to do it, to put something on the All for Oneonta or on our website or something, like interested in volunteering, check these boxes of types of things you would like to do, and we'll put you in contact with organizations.
Yeah, I've just brought in a social media intern from Hardwick, they,
Oh,
wonderful.
would be tasked with something like that
Yeah.
right away. I've got a thought. So, obviously I talk to a lot of people, and we have a very empathetic community. It warms your heart when you talk to folks. There's frustration on a lot of people's part in terms of knowing the answer to what seems like a pretty basic question: how can I help? Like the Lord's table is down to 2 nights a week, right? From, what was it, 4, I guess. How do I help? Do what they need? How can I help generally? I mean, is it money? Is it food? Is it volunteerism? Who do I talk to? Is there, to your point, is there a central, individual, a centralized location, or some conduit for me to be connected in the overall? I'm not a member of this church or that church, but I want to be able to help. Who do I talk to? What do I do? What can I do? And I don't really, quite honestly, in those moments, have a great answer. So I think if we could find ourselves to some sort of a somewhat generic but helpful answer for folks that I could share with them, this is how you can help. That would be a huge takeaway for me.
Okay. In our meeting,
Yes.
that's something we'll address. How can people in the community help you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going back to also, not the question you're asking, but a mechanism through which, anyone in the community can go on and look and see that there's a volunteer opportunity at Lord's Table, or such and such needs money. I mean, I think we can all assume that, but sometimes it makes a big difference to be able to see something right out there in front of you. And oftentimes, I think some people are just, they're not sure, and it might help to just kind of see it a couple times and be reminded, like, okay, maybe I will go volunteer at the Lord's Table, you know?
If you had, I mean, I always go back to, web-based stuff.
Right.
But if you had something that kind of reverse filters, so you were, you had money to donate, to whom, and you had a drop down and you could go here, there, or whatever, and it would be specifically usable for targetable to that, or I have volunteer time that I'd like, but I'm only available during the days, I'm only available during the evenings, I'm only available on a weekend, or whatever it might be. Where can I help? Who can I help? I have food that I'd like to donate. What types of food can I donate? To whom can I donate it? And quite honestly, if you bring them up after Thanksgiving, how many people were looking to donate, the leftovers? And some did, I'm sure, but I think a lot of tables, that was probably a conversation around a lot of tables. We've got all these extra pies. People, well, what do we do with them? Well, you can't really bring down 12 pies to, well, where do you take them anyway? But, so just, really kind of specific information that it was that would be probably something that's a one-off in terms of its construct. There are always going to be these things like Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or Passover, whatever, where you've got these opportunities that are a little bit, more outsized. But just generally speaking, where can I volunteer? Where can I donate food? What kind of food? What are the parameters? Where can who can I provide money to? Et cetera.
Right. It goes back to one of the first things we heard on that really huge summit we did, I guess this summer, 2 summers ago.
22, that's ago.
Yeah, where we heard that it was kind of an inventory, like a resource list was something that everyone wanted, and we kind of started down that path that we were to get off the ground. I still feel like there's some value in that. Like you're saying, people can populate it, so-and-so organization, we always need X volunteers, here's our contact person, here's the form you need to fill out to be able to do things, just to facilitate easier understanding of what those opportunities are. You're right, we have needs, we have people that can help, and they're not always connected. And again, that seems to be the story of our area. So how do we kind of
And
facilitate
even
this?
from my perspective, I feel helpless because I can't really give people a good answer.
Maybe a sub-portal, like something as simple as like a volunteer only onto, I mean, it's not necessarily one-stop shop, because there's a lot of these partners, but if there's some themes that we're seeing, maybe we can put together something, or work with our intern, that could potentially do that, because I think, as has been brought up, that question is how can I help, and not knowing the answer, because it's sometimes it's well, money, but how do you get that money to people, or oh, I can volunteer, but how do you do that? Potentially putting up that portal on our website might help, and it won't hurt.
I think it's a great idea.
And then lastly, and I think we just talked about what we can do, but I think the last piece is during the conversation as to what can we do? What can we do to assist the organizations? What role can we play? So if we're looking at this, we've got kind of quick names and intros of organizations for those that were not here the last one in May. The update about volunteers, maybe Katie, you can take the lead on that one.
Sure.
Asking about that. Discussion of the Hunger Coalition, so we might want to queue up the Reverend or her representatives to make sure that we're going to have some discussion about that. And then I think that's really going to be organic, is where we want to go and what that looks like. How can the coalition be supported? What do they need? What assistance can be provided? Are they connected? How do we connect that? And then lastly, what can we do to assist? And then I think also the takeaway, as the mayor said, to say that we're beginning to look at and explore this idea of I don't even know what I want to refer to, the kind of clearinghouse, but of a repository for different opportunities and maybe get some feedback on that particular idea. And maybe somebody has already the framework for it, we just don't know. So maybe we're just throwing it out there. Does that sound like that gets at what we're trying to accomplish here in this meeting?
It does. Would it be helpful, it might be helpful for me, tonight if I send the members of this committee just a brief agenda, just to make sure I've got everything. I will also, Katie, Mark, and write a letter, a specific email to Reverend Cynthia and CCU all on it to see if she'd be willing to kind of step in and take some time to talk about the Hunger Coalition.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll do that tonight.
Or designate or
Or,
something.
yes, someone from her orbit.
Perfect, yeah, good, good. Anything else we're missing?
That sounds great.
Okay, Katie, good?
Yeah.
Mayor, good?
Yes.
All right, so I think we've got ourselves a plan. Next Tuesday, 3 o'clock, that Zoom link has been sent, we might wanna resend that one.
That's what I was planning on doing,
A little closer.
Thursday, my fear is Friday, because I get into school around 3. If I send it Friday, people will miss it, they'll get underneath people's stuff. So I'll send it Thursday, and I was also thinking about sending it Monday as well.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that I'm pretty fresh looking at my email on Monday morning, so.
Yep.
All right, well, I think we've got our plan, and then we'll just kind of let it roll where it's gonna roll, and I mean, this group seemed like, like you said, we just asked a question, stepped out of the way, and kept trying to redirect every once in a while, but they had the force of their own, so we can kind of let this kind of go in its own direction again, so. All right. Cool.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and thoughts today, and, well, we'll see everybody virtually at least, well, see everybody tomorrow, we'll see everybody in this context virtually on Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Thank you.